Hello and welcome back into another edition of Cardinals Corner, a breaking news edition of Cardinals Corner, and tapping in for this emergency pod as always. It's Arizona Sports Cardinals reporter Tyler Drake. I am Erik Ruby, and we are here because the Arizona Cardinals outright released DeAndre Hopkins this morning at 10 a.m. sharp. Tyler, welcome to chaos.
Yeah. How about that for Friday news dump? I think we can
Memorial Day weekend Friday news dump.
I think we all were assuming it's going to be a nice and easy transition into the weekend, but instead, nice little news dump at 10 o'clock on the dot. Yeah, but I mean, hey, we finally got an answer to the question that we've all been asking all offseason: is what the heck is going to happen with DeAndre Hopkins? And so far, it looks like he is just going to be released. I mean, there might be a chance that he comes back, or not come back, but get traded. But outside of that, I don't think so. I think he's getting cut, and I think he's going to be looking for another team, and we will see who that is. There's three that come to mind right away.
Yeah, and we'll get into future stuff with him. About what you touched on, though, about the possibility of him maybe still getting traded, it's some murky waters right now. There's not really a direct answer to if that's still possible. The only thing similarly that you could draw upon was actually, ironically, when the Cardinals got Rodney Hudson. The Raiders had announced that they were going to be releasing him, and then days following that, it actually turned into a bidding war with the Cardinals ending up trading for him instead of outright signing him. The difference, though, is that the Raiders were just reports via, Ian Rappaport. This was the team at 10 o'clock, directly from the source, saying, we have released DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Does that to you signify that it's like 99% over? Like, even if there is a chance, like they wouldn't be doing this, right?
That's how I feel. I feel like they're giving up the rest of their leverage here. I mean, really, I feel like they're just saying we don't want him on our team, so he's gone. And I think at that point, it's why would you want to go facilitate a deal that you might have to send a pick back? I mean, let him be released on Tuesday, officially released through the transaction wire Tuesday, and have free reign to go sign him for whatever. I mean, really, that's the big reason why I don't see any kind of trade happening. But again, who knows? There could be things in the works that we don't even know about yet. So I'm really interested to see how the rest of this weekend goes. But in my eyes, I just don't see him. I don't see them facilitating a trade at this point. Why would another team want to make a deal at this point? That's really what it comes down to. And if they wanted to make a deal, why not do it a month ago, 2 months ago? These are a lot of questions that I feel like we know the answers to, but there is still that 1%, like you mentioned, of we don't really know.
Yeah, and let's not focus too much on the 1%, because if somehow, some way they manipulate this into announcing on a Friday and not going official into a Tuesday, and in that couple-day span they get something for him, kudos. The reality is DeAndre Hopkins is not going to be an Arizona Cardinal next year. And the even more likely reality is that they got absolutely nothing in exchange for him. Are you disappointed in that?
I mean, let's take a look at just the timeline of all this. We went from Hopkins is a first rounder or a first round compensation to, he's probably a second rounder. To maybe, a third. Maybe a fourth. I mean, we're getting to the point where does the 6th or 7th rounder really mean that much of, you're really buying a lottery ticket of, millions of odds. It's a million and one odds, or 1 in a million odds, I should say. And it's just, I think at the end of the day, it's about saving cap space. And I think you got to look at what Monty Austin-Ford's doing. I mean, it's his first year. He's making these deals that aren't going to break the bank. He's trying to save cap space where he can. I think this is not going to be the only move that is going to try to clear up cap space for this team with guys that are returning. There's other people on this team that kind of give me the feeling of, hey, this could be a similar thing of, hey, we need to save some money for 2024 and beyond, because I think right now the outlook is you go full bore 2024 and beyond with the draft capital they already have, with their first round pick, Houston Texans first round pick, and a lot of rookies that they really love, and a lot of guys on 2-year deals, 1-2-year deals that aren't going to absolutely crush the cap space when they need to end up going out and spend and try to get back into relevancy next year.
Yeah, I find it completely hard to believe that over this time period, there was not a single trade offer for DeAndre Hopkins. Even if he's not willing
I just think it was late rounders. They're not going to take that.
But why? Like at this point, if you're gonna be outright releasing him, right? Like, I understand, hey, it's a long shot. You get a 6th or 7th round pick for him. Who knows? Who knows if they're gonna be good? Well, you know what they don't have for him right now? Anything. You don't even buy a lottery ticket, right? Like, you don't have those chances. I'd rather have the chances.
They've got the cap space now where they could go buy one.
But
next year.
I personally, like, I definitely can relate and understand with the people who are completely thrown off by the fact they didn't get a dang thing for him, because at the end of the day, he was DeAndre Hopkins. And you know, there's some recent Gambo news coming out since we hopped on here. I'm going to read his latest tweets. I'll let you react to it live on the pod. From @Gambo987 says, it's unfair to say the Cardinals couldn't trade DeAndre Hopkins. There were certainly teams interested at the draft, Kansas City and Buffalo, but it takes two to tango. Any trade would have required Hop to restructure his deal, and that is something he did not want to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we already all knew that. And I'll tell you right now, I've got a piece on ArizonaSports.com that pretty much says that same thing of they needed two to tango, and they just couldn't come to an agreement. And yeah, like it says, what's it say? KC and Buffalo. Yeah, I mean, those are two teams that I think we all could have expected would have been in on them. So it makes sense. And now watch, these guys are going to probably go pluck them off the free agency wire here on Tuesday or Wednesday.
I mean, yeah, he'll be, I would assume it's either going to be like the first day he's on the market, he's got a team that he already knows he wants to go to and he's talked to, or I could see him doing probably the most DeAndre Hopkins thing ever, which would be like a media tour and like be wined and dined and like in Baltimore today, eye emoji, hitting up my man Billy B in New England today, eye emoji. Like, it's going to be one of the two. I would presume it's going to be the first one where he just has a suitor already lined up. Before we get into that, what do the Cardinals gain then? What do they gain from cutting him, Tyler? Because everybody and their mother is going to be upset that they didn't get anything for him, right? And I think it's an understandable position, as long as you're not like, well, they should have gotten 3 first-round picks. You know, the complete opposite side of it. What's the benefit? Why now? What are they gaining?
I mean, here's the thing. Let's take a look at the season. There's not a lot to go off of wins and loss, like on wins and losses. I mean, it's really going to be about individual growth, individual, take that next step, like Cam Thomas, those type of guys. It's not going to be about the wins and losses. I can tell you guys right now, it's not going to be about that. It can't be about that.
Breaking news here on Cardinals Corner.
And seeing the dead money hit that they're taking this year for releasing him when they did, that shows you right there. I mean, they've got a $22.6, I think, million dead money cap hit now that they've got because they released him before June 1st. So, I mean, that's tough. You can't really do a lot there. I mean, you were pretty hamstrung on what you can do. But next year, that all comes off the books. They don't have to split. If they would have done it after June 1st, they split that to 11.3 over the next 2 seasons. But instead, they do it all now, get it out of the way. Next year, I think they're going to get that money back. They could go spend it on positions of need that there are quite a few of them. And from there, you just go. And I think that's the thing everybody has to look at. They're getting cap space back. Yeah, obviously, it's going to hurt. You can't get a draft picks back, any kind of capital back. But you have to look at what needs to happen with this team. 1, they need the cap space. 2, do you want to have somebody that doesn't want to be there in a place that needs that culture switch, that is going through a culture switch? Do you really want to revert backwards? You can't at this point. You have to keep moving forward. So getting rid of Hopkins is a big deal. And I think a lot of people are going to be upset about this because of the draft pick, the non-compensation that they got for him. But you got to look at the future. You've got to look next year. You got to look down the line. I know don't ever like to hear that, but you really do. As Philadelphia 76ers said a long time ago, which doesn't really make a lot of sense still, trust the process. And I think right now Monty Osfort and Jonathan Gannon have a plan. We just have to see him orchestrate it now. We have to see him hit on these draft picks, hit on these young guys that they brought in, hit on the guys that character that can turn this organization around, not only on the field, but off the field.
Yeah. I mean, there are definite benefits from releasing DeAndre Hopkins. Number one is now every time that one of your guys goes and speaks to the media this summer, they're not going to be asked, right? You're not going to be showing up to any voluntary OTAs, any mandatory OTAs, training camps, whatnot, with the storyline being, where's DeAndre Hopkins?
Exactly.
Why isn't he here? Is he going to be traded? And you know, I do agree. That is good for the mental of a football locker room. That is, I know these words are not probably allowed to be uttered while you're on Cardinals facilities, but while you're going through a rebuild. And I think we need to take the shame away from the term rebuild. Like, this is sports. This is what happens. This is the cycle of things. This is not a, oh, so embarrassing. Like, would you rather have a winning football franchise? Absolutely. Do a lot of the teams that end up being big-time winners go through really bad periods beforehand? Yes. Almost every single one had a year where they're at the top of the draft. And the Cardinals, especially this new regime, were dealt a very hard hand. You've got a team that had a top 3 draft pick, but tons of veteran talent. Tons of it.
Yep.
What do? You've got to shed the veteran talent. You would probably prefer to get value for that talent. You didn't. That's unfortunate because now you're going to be losing JJ. You're going to be losing Rodney. You're going to be losing DeAndre. These are all guys that you are getting absolutely zero assets back for. Those are just negatives.
But if you look at it, Rodney and JJ retiring, I feel like that's kind of a different situation. Obviously, you can't trade a retired dude, so I get that part of it.
I'm not saying in the term of like, oh, the Cardinals should have got something for them. I'm just saying you're losing.
I got you.
You're losing multiple veterans in your locker room for nothing, right? And you were already bad. So now you're trying to establish a new culture. You're trying to bring in a bunch of people and have an entirely new set of faces run this franchise, while also marrying that with your old franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray, who it's strange to say is the old quarterback now. But Tyler, lots of people have their eyes on Caleb Williams now. And I don't know if that's how this Cardinals franchise is operating. Like, yes, I don't think they're trying to get wins this season, but I certainly don't think they're completely out on Kyler Murray. But does this move impact what you think his possible timeline could be this season?
Not really. I think I'm at the point now where they're not going to rush him out there. They're not going to try to get him out there week 3, week 4. I mean, I'm seeing it as a week 8 and beyond. Like, that's when I feel like he's coming back, and they need to come back because they need to see from him what he's got after, post ACL tear, surgery, all of that. Because it's an intriguing conversation to just, if they have 1 and 2, I mean, what do you do? You've either got to keep Kyler around and trade that pick for a boatload of draft capital moving forward, or you pull the trigger and go Caleb, and that's just something that's going to come up. Like, I'm not trying to speculate anything like that. That is just going to be a storyline moving forward, especially if both the Cardinals and the Texans are bad. Like, that's just going to be a storyline, and it's imperative that they see something out of Kyler before they make that decision. So, getting him back, I think he's already showing his leadership is improving a little bit. His maturity is improving a little bit. But get him back on the field. Can he run the same? Can he throw the same? Can he be that same guy, that dynamic runner who needs his legs to really be that guy? So really interested to see that. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And I think, the Hopkins move shows you that this regime is looking to make its own path, blaze its own trail, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't pick up the option on Simmons. Hopkins is gone. Buddha is now at the forefront of what the heck do they do with him? And before we get into that, I do want to talk about the wide receiver room as it currently stands, because it doesn't stand that tall. They have multiple receivers who are 5'8" and under, especially their top ones, in Rondale Moore and Marquise Hollywood Brown. I know they're not trying to win games this season. I'm not stupid. But is that still somewhat a cause for concern to where you're going to be bringing Kyler Murray back, basically like you said, on a trial basis of, hey, let's see if you can do this. And Kyler's not going to have a number 1 big target to throw to. Like, you're not going to have Hopkins anymore. Hollywood Brown is your number 1 option.
And here's the thing. It's a prove-it year for Hollywood even before this happened. I mean, it's a contract year for him. And now he is the de facto number one. And, he's shown shades that he could be a number one guy, but not on a consistent basis, in my opinion. So I'm really interested to see how he comes up and shows up and steps up. And really, I mean, him and Kyler gelled before. They've gelled in college. Is this, a sign of, hey, let's really give them an opportunity to go out there and just play catch with each other? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly how Hollywood handles this, added pressure of being the number one guy. I mean, Pascal, maybe on the outside, he might be a bigger guy, but can you really say he's the number one guy? Can you say Rondale Moore's the number one guy with his injury issues? Can you say Greg Dortch is the number one guy with his, just really not enough playing time? He doesn't get the playing time because of his, stature, it feels like. So really, Hollywood is the guy. That's going to be the guy. That's going to dictate. He's going to dictate what this wide receiver room is made of this year. And it's really, really going to be interesting, because if he falters, who knows? I mean, he might not be on the team next year either.
Do you want to know how I kind of know he's not going to be on the team next year? I've got this theory working. I want you to hear me out.
Tell me.
Okay. There is not enough room in Phoenix metro area sports for people who share names, right? Let me run you through this. We had two Monties, okay? We had Monty Williams and we had Monty Oftenfort. Monty Williams is gone. Done. Bye-bye. One Monty left in town. Okay. What about the DeAndres, right? DeAndre Ayton, DeAndre Hopkins.
I don't know. There might not be any DeAndres.
I was about to say, there's a chance we don't, but there's now a way better chance that DeAndre Ayton stays in this town and Hopkins is gone. That's why we're doing this podcast. And then it brings me to Hollywood, Tyler.
No.
And I know why you're saying this. It's because your nickname is Hollywood. You are Tyler Hollywood Drake, because this man's doing TV hits. He's doing radio hits. He's telling me, yeah, we can do the podcast, but I just got to go on TV first. Like, there's not enough room in the Phoenix metro area for two prominent football figures with the nickname Hollywood. And you're not going anywhere. I'm not letting you.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
So that's my working theory right now, is that it doesn't matter if he puts up 2,000 yards this year, man. There's not enough room for two Hollywoods in the state 48, man, and this one ain't going nowhere.
I don't know. If he puts up 2,000 yards, there's probably room for him.
Nah, I'm messing around. I am interested to see him. Like, he shouldn't be your number one, but how are you going to look with Marquise Hollywood Brown as your number one and Colt McCoy / Clayton Tune / David Blau / Jeff Driscoll as your starting quarterback, man? Like, that's just... Talk about working with not a lot there. And if they do well and they look good, it's going to be a lot on the scheme of what they've brought in. Drew Petzing, Jonathan Gannon. Yeah. So let's talk Hop then going forward. You said there was a couple teams on your mind immediately. Those are?
I would say Buffalo stood out right away. His I Am Athlete podcast interview was done in Toronto. That's only like an hour and 45 from Buffalo. I've never been to either, so I couldn't tell you for sure, but I think I looked it up and that was right around the time frame. Kansas City's another team. Baltimore's another team. Really, I think it's one of the AFC powerhouses right now. I really think it's going to come down to one of those guys, and it's going to be who can keep up in the arms race. And I really do think it's going to come down to one of those teams getting them. And he's probably, people say he's not going to take a pay cut, but I think at the end of the day, if you want to be on one of these teams, you're probably going to have to, just because of their current cap situation.
He'd be traded for. Like, he would be on another team right now if they were willing to pay him at the contract that he had signed.
True.
Like that.
True.
That's what.
And that's the thing. Does he want to take a pay cut? And if he doesn't, where does he go? And maybe these teams aren't in that running after he tells them, no, I'm not taking a pay cut.
Can I give you two worst case scenarios that I don't really feel like anybody's talking about?
Let me see. Let me try to guess.
Please.
Let me see. Worst case scenario.
Disclaimer: I'm not that up on all the cap space stuff, so maybe these aren't possible. But these.
No, okay. Then tell me. I want you to tell me. I just want you to tell me that.
Okay. The San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay. I knew you were going that way. I just didn't say it.
I mean, think about it from their perspective, right?
I don't think so. I think the Niners aren't going to want to spend that. They're already spending money. They're already spending money.
But I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be asking for that same price now that he's released. Because he's not going to get it. And what's he going to do? Not play football?
Either, man. And they've got enough options up there.
I feel like that's the type of thing where he's probably going to reduce his price, and it's going to be wherever he wants to go. He probably
Watch him go to like the Bengals or something.
That would be incredible. I don't know. I'm not saying those are likely. I'm just saying that would be nightmare for the Cardinals to then in turn have DeAndre Hopkins run amok on them.
Yes.
So looking forward, because you've got to. There's really only one way to look with this team, and that's in the future. Do you think that this is a precursor to how the Budda Baker situation will play out in the end?
No, I think they really want to keep Budda around. I think they just need to both come together and meet in the middle on a deal. I think from everything that Monty and Jonathan have said about this guy, like Baker seems like they want him as a cornerstone. It didn't seem that way with Hop. That was just kind of just how they, went about answering the questions. Budda, I mean, I remember when the introductory press conferences, I think, or one or two after that, they talked about how Budda Baker is like the definition of a Cardinal. So that's the kind of player they want. They talked about the 4 pillars of violence, smarts, adaptability, football character, all of that. And I mean, Baker has that 100%. So it's, I don't think it's going to go the way of Hopkins. But again, I mean, if he doesn't show up to training camp, then there's cause for concern for sure.
Well, that's, I guess, what I'm thinking at, right? Because we would all like to live in a world where we would imagine that Budda Baker would handle this situation differently than DeAndre Hopkins, that he would continue to be this almost righteous leader that he's been in the locker room. But what if he's not? What if he takes a page?
You got to look at the culture rebuild too. Well, I mean, they want to have a culture that is rebuilt, that everybody bought in. I mean, if you've got a guy that's still not fully bought in, do you want to keep that around?
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Like,
yeah,
this organization has proven that you're either in or you're out. And even if that means they kind of have to take the hit of it, they are not going to tolerate distractions, like almost a sort of anarchy on day-to-day football operations. I hate saying this about football franchises, especially with people who leave this franchise I'm about to reference, because it's not always true, but it's very Patriots-like. You're not. It doesn't matter the talent. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how you think you should be operating. If you are not with the game plan, if you are not on the we before me train, Monty Ossenfort has no problems cutting ties with you, even if it's going to cost him.
Where is Monty coming from?
The New England Patriots, via other teams as well. But if Budda Baker keeps tweeting and doesn't show up to things and starts talking about, I want my contract, I'm not showing up till I want my contract, and continuing to go public with this because, boy, are we learning that this team does not like to go through public avenues. They tweeted this themselves. How often is that you don't have an Ian Rappaport or an Adam Schefter being the first one to break this news? It was the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah. So if Budda continues to take this path that you would assume Buddha's been taking, as great as he is, as much as when he's fully bought in, he can completely resemble how you want to build a franchise, if that's not the player you're getting when he walks in the door every single day, they've shown they don't care. So how am I going to sit here convinced, they're not going to trade Budda. They're just going to go figure out a contract situation. It looks like they play hardball, no matter your talent level. It's not concerning, but it's almost intriguing at this point. Like, okay, stand up for yourself. Don't be pushed around by players. Because last offseason, this team was pushed around by Marcus Golden. You're right. Like the Holden, they got pushed around. That's not happening.
Junk, man. He deserved to get it. He deserved to get another deal. I mean, it obviously didn't translate to that this last season. But hey, man, like he went out and got his, and that's. I mean, we saw that full. I mean, I think we all knew it was a hold-in. It just wasn't considered a hold-in.
Right. I mean, it was one of those things where, hey, are you holding in? No. Okay, that's a lie. Cool. Let's move on.
It's like, oh, my arm hurts.
Yeah, and so what does Budda have a back injury coming into training camp, or what is it? Because unless he's there and he's fully bought in, which it might just take money. It really might. But it might not. Like, there might be more to this. I don't know. I'm intrigued, less so because of how Hop handled this, but more of how this new regime handled it. So is there anything else that you wanted to touch on when it comes specifically to what this means in the now, in the future, for the Cardinals, for DeAndre Hopkins? Is there anything we haven't hit yet?
I think just for me, this is a move that is for the future. I mean, I think that's what we all have to take it as, is the non-compensation hurts, but it is a move that puts them in a better spot down the line than they are right now.
Then I want you to give me your final takeaways. Look back at the DeAndre Hopkins era. You trade for him for David Johnson, a second-round pick, and practically swapping fourths.
Yeah.
Now he's gone.
I mean, yeah.
What happened?
Great trade. I thought it was a great trade. Still think it's a great trade. And he showed that. I mean, that first year he went off. I mean, the Hail Murray is a definite thing that a lot of people are going to remember from his time in the desert. Obviously after that, things kind of got rocky with just the injuries and the 6-game suspension for performance-enhancing drugs and all of that. So obviously it started off amazing, but ended, I think, in a way that a lot of people didn't see it shaking out. And that's really what I got. I think he was a great dude to talk to when we did get to talk to him. He gave me the time during the Super Bowl week to, chat with me about his status. So I appreciate that from him and wish him all the best of luck moving forward. But you really got to turn the page if you're the Cardinals. I mean, this you can't be stuck on one player. You got to move forward and you got to figure out what's next, because you can't sit around just thinking, oh man, maybe he'll come back. You've got to be assertive in the direction you want to take this team.
Shout out to Tony Jefferson, retiring after 9 seasons in the NFL to become a scout with the Ravens, spent 4 seasons with the Cardinals from 2013 to 16, undrafted rookie, come in, fight your way up to the top, work your way into a secondary rotation. Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, Deion Buchanan, Rashad Johnson, Gerard Powers, the no-fly zone. Any memories from Tony Jefferson's time here in the Valley that are worth sharing?
Man, he just, for me, he was a great contributor on the field, but he had a really solid Twitter game. I thought
100%.
He had a great Twitter game.
I think my favorite tweet from him, and I'm looking it up right now to make sure that it was him, was when he basically was like, yeah, I needed glasses my entire NFL career.
Yeah.
I was playing blurry.
I think it was with the Jameis Winston thing, and I think he said the same thing.
Yeah, like the fact that you could become a professional athlete at the highest level, especially one that requires vision, right? You're secondary. You're not just down in the trenches. And it'd be like, yeah, I kind of couldn't see that entire time. That's hilarious. Wow. If you want to get a recap of Tony Jefferson's career, all of that, find it on the Arizona Sports app, arizonasports.com, along with all of Tyler's great work covering what happened with DeAndre Hopkins, how they got here, the Cardinals contract situation with him, and everything going forward. It's amazing to keep up with what Tyler is doing, and our producer Jeremy is giving me the, hey, I got something to say, so we're going to give the floor to him.
You missed calling him Hollywood again, because he brought up how he talked to DeAndre Hopkins
I know.
one-on-one.
Yeah.
So you missed calling him number one.
But what you don't get is because he's so Hollywood, is that he berates me afterwards for bringing it up.
Okay, so here's number 2. We couldn't have 2 Chandlers in Arizona as well. Chandler Jones and Chandler, Arizona.
Yeah.
and then also a little overarching look at this move. We think about how they didn't give the contract to Reddick. They didn't give the contract to Chandler Jones. They didn't bring back a couple guys this offseason. JJ and Rodney obviously retired. But you got to look at where the trend is going. They didn't want the big contract on their roster anymore.
Yep.
And it's because they have Kyler's big contract. So in order to build around him, you're going to have to find those pieces to build around him on a cheap, though.
And let's see if they could do it, right? I mean, that's why this year it's so important. Almost now all eyes are on that NFL draft, because you need those cost control, especially if you're keeping Kyler, because his money's about to start hitting. And that's Tyler Drake money, man. That's Hollywood money right there. You do not want to be stuck with that on the books and other expensive players to be paying. Good points from Jeremy. Of course, great stuff as always from Tyler. Follow him on Twitter at TDrake4Sports. He will keep you up to date with absolutely everything you need to know when it comes to the Cardinals. Also on the Arizona Sports app, arizonasports.com. Follow the show at AZ Cards Corner. We're putting up videos. We're putting up audio clips, really everything. Of course, a lot of it thanks to Jeremy and all of his help behind the scenes. Follow along with us. It's a lot of fun. At AZ Cards Corner, you can also follow myself at Erik Ruby, ErikRuby. Hear me on the Arizona Sports app and on 98.7 Monday through Friday, 12 through 5:30, bottom and top of every hour. But until then, enjoy the chaos that is the NFL offseason. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Adios.